Hello and welcome to a new episode of That Fertile Feeling, the podcast. My name is Françoise and I'm here today with Doula Semin, who I met as always through Instagram. Semin, she also lives in the Netherlands, but originally she's from Istanbul, she just told me. And we connected because we have a very similar approach to, I think, the fertility process, to how you can change the way you approach fertility. And I think she has a story that's very much similar to mine about finding your way to surrender and relaxation in the process. So I thought it would be great to have a conversation with her today. And welcome, Simin, on the show.
Thank you. Actually, it's good to have found each other finally.
Yeah.
At least I could have found you before, but I guess everything happens at the right time.
Mm,
But yeah, as you said, we share a history without knowing, I guess, because like you, I also have an academic background and I've done the PhD and
mm.
the postdocs and and I'm actually a public administration political scientist
Oh, yeah.
in background, let's say. But yeah, now it feels a very long time ago because I left the academia actually just before our fertility journey ended. What is that ended? But in
Mm,
any case, before I got pregnant, I left the academia already because our fertility journey led to a big soul searching process.
mm,
As a result of which I really felt the urge to find the purpose behind it all. Like, why is it not working out? Not
mm-hmm,
working out. Like, why am I not getting pregnant? And how can I serve, even if I don't get pregnant at the end of this process, with all that I have gathered in the process? And I
mm-hmm,
guess this is also a bit of an academic approach, maybe as well. But anyhow, so then I decided, well, I'll use this wisdom and also experience that I've gained from having gone through the process myself. And then, even if it wasn't rational or logical or career wise very smart of me to do so, I left it all behind. And then I decided to learn new things.
mm-hmm,
So I started out with counseling and coaching and doula training.
mm-hmm,
And actually, funny enough, the day or the day after I looked at my archives to see which day it
mm-hmm,
precisely was. I signed up for these two trainings. I also got a positive pregnancy test,
mm,
which led to actually our our son.
mm-hmm,
So it felt also like this was sort of a confirmation that I should go on this path
mm,
and share this journey with the world.
mm. And I really get goosebumps when I listen to your story, especially when you say, I wanted to know what my purpose is. I wanted to know how I could serve. And the thing I heard behind that, even if I'll never become a mother,
Mhm.
is that what you needed to find like your,
Well, I don't know. I never started this journey knowing where it would lead to, right? I mean,
yeah,
you started, and in our case, it took long. I
yeah,
think that's also the reason why I ended up asking these deepest questions, let's say, because we took 4 years,
hmm,
also because we also took pauses in the process and we
yeah,
didn't follow the protocol necessarily. But I mean, like you go on and every step led
hmm,
to a deeper soul searching, because first I started with the physical stuff, right?
hmm,
Supplements and diet
mm,
changes, the all that.
yeah,
But actually that was also a journey, looking back, because I was very much, science and medical. I mean, we just had been trying naturally for a year. We started at 33, let's say,
mm,
and then like 1 year after, like doctor, and I want solutions, and
yeah, yeah,
and so yeah, and we were there, and in the end, the first diagnosis we got was that I had a bit of low progesterone levels in the luteal phase.
hmm,
So then I got Clomid, um, And actually, right away, it was so painful.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like my ovaries were exploding. And right away, I felt like I was pushing the limits of my body because
Mm-hmm.
I felt right away there's nothing wrong with my ovulation, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting all these medicines which are sort of pushing my ovaries. Like, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it didn't feel right actually right away. But then I got pregnant after the first cycle, but then it was a miscarriage at 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So another round. Well, until we said stop because this Clomid's not working, and also it was really painful. So then right away I started looking for natural solutions. So that
Mm-hmm.
was the first sort of switch, looking for other remedies, let's say. And of course, I'm a researcher, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
social scientists helped me along. I got into traditional Chinese medicine, and then I started with these famous Chinese herbs that
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer Aniston also got,
Mm-hmm.
terrible.
Yeah.
But well,
They
at
smell,
least
right? It's like you're cooking that in your
it
kitchen.
smells terrible, and also the taste is really weird. But okay, you're ready to do anything. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like the advantage was that, I mean, like my cycles already started changing, no clots, a very nice flow, and also my digestion improved. So I felt, okay, at least even if I don't get pregnant, and I didn't in the end after the herbs,
Mm-hmm.
then my health is getting better with
Yeah.
this. It's
Yeah.
not like the medicines who are just giving me pain and don't have any benefits. I mean, this felt like I was doing something good for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I went on that path and then I tried Ayurveda. And I mean, like, I discovered a lot of things along the way, a massage. And I also did gluten free for some time. Back then, it was the fashion of superfoods. I tried
Mm-hmm.
superfoods. Yeah. And then, okay, body exhausted, like the options exhausted. So what do we do now? In the end, we also got a second opinion. And what that doctor said was, well, you're unexplained.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that unexplained label, which can be very painful, I realize, because there is no explanation. To
Yeah.
me, that was an invitation to search further and
Mm-hmm.
to find the answers myself. So I started digging deeper and deeper in myself and like, what could it be? What could it be?
Mm-hmm.
It became a whole searching process, I guess, and
Yeah.
a research of its own, I don't know, into myself. But actually, I mean, like, that was like the most beautiful thing.
And how did your journey end?
My journey never ended. I guess because I think when you start the therapy process,
Yeah.
it never ends. Right? That's what we learned also at the counseling training. Once in therapy, always in therapy. Well, but I mean, jokes aside, how did it end? Because okay, we're still journeying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So from Clomid to we went into UE. And then also we also went on holidays in the meantime because we thought, okay, nothing is working, so let's go on a big journey.
Yeah.
We went to South America, and this journey was really nice because I sort of really felt the abundance of nature in a way. So I think it fed me in a different way, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we returned, we were pregnant, and then of course super happy. And then at 6 weeks, we went and there was no heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
We waited for 2 weeks, and then 8 weeks, still no progress.
Yeah.
So then we had to make a choice about how to carry on with the miscarriage. So that was also a journey on its own. So then
Mm-hmm.
I started researching about how do you deal with a miscarriage, because you can wait it out, you can take the pill, or you can do an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
But I just couldn't get myself to have an abortion or take the pills
Mm-hmm.
because it felt so counterintuitive to, let's say, get rid of something I had longed for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, I'll wait it out. And the doctor said, it can take up to 6 weeks to
Mhm.
have, to have it naturally aborted. So 12 weeks, the 12 weeks we always talked about.
Mhm.
And indeed, it took 6 weeks. And my miscarriage began at 12 weeks,
Mhm.
naturally. And it almost felt like a birth because it took 16 hours
Yeah.
with the contractions and everything.
Yeah.
But then something else happens. At least the day I had my miscarriage was exactly the day that my mother had lost my sister when I was 8 years ago.
Mhm.
And that was also a Mother's Day.
Mhm.
I mean, Mother's Day had always been for our family a very emotionally laden day. And then I got the miscarriage on that day. So I thought, okay, there is, I guess, my core answer.
Mhm.
I'm repeating my mother's history.
Yeah.
So then this another journey began, right? Like,
Mhm.
okay, can it be that I'm repeating her history? And what's up here? Because what is this like losing children theme? At least that's what I ended up with going into searching, let's say, searching deeper.
Mhm.
And we have this theme is very present in our family, at least in my female line.
Mhm.
So my great grandmother, she has given birth to 11 children and has lost seven of them.
Mhm.
And I mean, not miscarriages, right? They were babies, well, 4 or 5 months.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of grief on this topic. And then her daughters, for example, one of them never got pregnant.
Mhm.
And I am actually like the fruit of her last like pregnancy. That's my grandmother, right? And then
Mhm.
my grandmother did give birth to three kids.
Mhm.
Well, she had one miscarriage, by the way. And that's also the thing. The moment you have a miscarriage, then all the miscarriage stories come to you because
Yeah. Yeah.
usually women don't talk about this, right? But once you have it, then there is this whole field opening up and
Yeah.
women talking about their miscarriages, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I figured out this big hole and big grief of lost babies, and I decided that I would stop with me in a way. First, of course, I also had to honor that this was a part of my history, right? Because
Mhm.
it had been felt and it had been gone through. And then I decided I would search for ways of healing this for, first, I guess seeing it was the first step
Mhm.
because I was 8 years old when I lost my sister. So I consciously experienced it. And I think in the end, it's also one of the biggest traumas of my life, right? When you lose a baby sister just right like the day after her birth.
Mhm.
I'm now actually thinking maybe like it's also took her like 16 hours, something like that. Like she was born on the day my miscarriage started and then
Mhm.
dead on the day I miscarried. Well, anyhow, so then I started that part of the journey.
Yeah.
And then, family constellations, sort of putting my sister there, seeing her. But then, time passes, by the way, because I told you it's 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, and then we're doing another EUE, and then it's still not working. And actually, in the end, we also stopped with the EUEs. We didn't do all of them because it
Mhm.
wasn't working either. And then we also went on to IVF.
Mhm.
First one also didn't work out. Also, our frozen embryo also didn't thaw. So I was still searching, right? And
Mhm.
also still like, I mean, okay, like I had acknowledged the loss of my sister, but I was still seeing dreams
Mhm.
that I'm pregnant and I'm giving birth, and it's still the child of my mother.
Mhm.
So it's like I had to work with it still, sort of to really to heal it, let's say.
Yeah.
in the end, I think regression therapy, that was the last thing, at least and then I was at IVF too.
Yes.
And with that therapist, she was also a dream therapist, by the way. So she was also like, oh my God, like, and by the way, I didn't see all these losses, that like the series of losses. Maybe I first saw just like my sister, and then she invited me to look into all the losses, all the women, and then sort of
Hmm.
going through them and acknowledging them and honoring them, and also going back to my own birth and to all those moments who have like shaped my life. And then after that, actually it's sort of the cycle after that, like
Hmm.
it's in the second transfer of the second IVF, then I got
Hmm.
pregnant. But then this also coincided with this purpose. Everything is sort of
Coming together.
mixed
Yeah.
up, of course.
Yeah. And I actually love that because it that shows us it's not one thing. There's not one blueprint that works for everyone. It's about finding your own path,
Yeah,
really.
and also, I mean, sometimes also, like also my clients ask me, what do you think worked out for you in the end?
Yeah.
And actually, it's so difficult to tell because, I had also been already living healthily. So,
Mm.
and then I had been doing all these coaching and therapy, but which one worked in the end? In the end, you tend to think the last thing you did worked.
Yeah.
Like the last thing I did was the regression therapy, but can I
Yeah.
say, yeah, go to regression therapy and your answer is found? Not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do believe that like this intergenerational trauma link opened a big door, because I think there was a lot of trauma stored for generations, and it was also not talked about and not grieved about or mourned about
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
So I had sort of to do the grieving, and also like 28 years later, like grieving the loss of my sister, which I didn't back then, right? Because I was a child
Yeah.
and everyone told us not to sort of cry. And also my parents,
Mhm.
they like, back then it was sort of still a time that you had to get over it and move on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had to stand still and go back and mourn, let's
Yeah.
say, for all the people who hadn't mourned.
Yeah. And how did you do that? Was there like a ritual you did? Was it just sitting with the memory?
Well, actually, in that sense, also music helped a
Mm-hmm.
lot. I mean, of course, I was talking it with my coach and my therapist, but also just, well, also writing a letter to my mom. I also realized what she had been through, also, like, or also as a child, sort of living through the memories, like, because she was in the end a postpartum mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then she had also lost her child. So I realized what kind of a pain that must have been for her. And then also, everyone was telling her to be strong for me because I was there. So
Mm.
this was also something that came up in the constellations, of course,
Yeah.
that I had taken up also in terms of a weight of
Yeah.
this on me, like that like my parents had to stand up for me or something, so I had to also give this weight back to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps on coming up, I should say, this thing in my life,
Yeah.
because I mean I've also mourned it years later, because also it's still there, because my mother, I think she still hasn't mourned it enough.
Mm-hmm.
So every Mother's Day she's still sad about the loss.
Mm-hmm.
Even a few years ago, I sort of paid a visit to the grave of my sister, who doesn't have her own grave, right? She doesn't have a tombstone, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother hasn't seen her. And I mean, like, there's so much pain still there that it still comes up. And then also, like, when when I was writing recently, again, like had to go back to a defining moment of my life. And then I go again back to that
So,
day that my
yeah.
sister died. So I think this kind of trauma is also it's a lifelong process. That's what I mean with the journey hasn't ended, right? And sometimes you don't even know what the grief is about. So we try to find the grief, but grief rituals are also now a part of my work because I think there is grief everywhere.
Yeah.
And grief is underrated, let's say. I mean, also, grief is a part of the fertility process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's also a very alive and kicking grief in the fertility treatment process.
In so
But
many
there's
ways.
also
Yeah.
grief in the past because
Yeah.
every family has a grief. I mean, it's like it's almost impossible that there's a family without a history of some kind of loss. There's always loss. So I think it always helps to heal those losses.
Yeah. And I think, and that's what you're getting at, right? That the go-to response is to want to fix it, to say, okay, there's loss, there's trauma, there's grief. So tick box exercise, I'll go, I look at it, I fix it, and then that will help my fertility. And I think that's what you're saying is, but it's not to be fixed. Healing is not necessarily fixing. It's about creating space and acknowledging that you have that shadow in your life and that might always be there. And they're just creating space for that shadow. Is that like a good summary?
Yeah, I mean, like in that sense, it's like a never-ending process. But on the other hand, I think it helps a lot to acknowledge, especially this shared female pain.
Mm. What are some of the most common types of trauma that you see in the women that you work with?
I always ask upfront, actually, quite upfront, like, is there a history of miscarriage or loss in your family? Mostly the first response is not that I know of,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm like, are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
And then, I invite everyone to open up the conversation with their mothers, with their aunts. And sometimes it also comes up, and sometimes it's also closer to you. For
Mm-hmm.
example, it can be that your mother, it took her long to get pregnant. That can also even leave an imprint. Okay, maybe I will also. I mean, like this, these are also
Mm-hmm.
not always conscious imprints in your head,
Yeah.
but maybe you came to believe it. So we try to sort of release all kinds of beliefs, or for example, very difficult birth or
Mm-hmm.
postpartum depression. I mean, everything you sort of record,
Yeah.
the things you hear from the women who were the closest to you.
Yeah.
And they might, I also say, it doesn't have to sort of block you from getting pregnant, but let's look into it. And I believe that actually the most important step is to acknowledge that that might be playing a role, that
Yeah.
you have come to believe this. And now you can sort of release it and start to write your own story. That's
Yeah.
also what I always say, write your own story.
Yeah.
Because, otherwise we're sort of inheriting other women's stories.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, we always need to make a new beginning. And
Yeah.
usually women come to me, well, not at the beginning of the process, let's say. That also happens, by the way, but
Mm-hmm.
that's more rare.
Yeah.
So they have already been doing things in a particular way. So
Mm-hmm.
I always invite to make a fresh start and to sort of release whatever whatever they have come to believe, or uh, what has been might be. I mean, that's also the thing. I think working with the emotional side or the psyche, you don't have definite answers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you just look into it and give it attention. And then I think giving the attention part is the most important work, maybe just acknowledging it, looking at it, and, well, getting softer also
Mm-hmm.
towards that topic or towards
Yeah.
yourself. And then,
Yeah. And I do
sort
think
of
that's
clearing out.
I think that's what you can really see in the body. If you work with those memories and you feel the imprint, you can also feel it shift, right? So even if that's
Hmm.
not a definitive answer or a definitive proof that something shifted, you do feel it when you're softer, when you feel more calm, when you feel more confident, when you feel more secure. I mean, That's always what I want
Yeah.
to tell women is it is possible. I know that you're on the journey. You feel like, can it be anything else than fear? But it can be. And I think this is actually one of the ways to get there is to work through those trauma stories and
Hmm.
blockages.
um, there is no certainty, but
Yeah.
because our emotions get stored in the belly, that's what we try to clear out. And well, so that's why I look for, let's say, um, traces of trauma there,
Yeah.
especially in women-related traumas, like let's
And
say.
how do you recognize those traces, or how could someone themselves start recognizing if they carry any trauma?
Well, as I said,
Yeah.
start the conversation with the women in your family.
Yeah.
Like, what are the stories about birth? What are the stories about getting pregnant? Have there been kids lost, babies lost? And then dreams. If you're a
Mhm.
dreamer like me, then you can
Yeah.
also look for traces in your dreams. Because I mean, like, I saw those dreams when I was trying to get pregnant, right? And then when
Yeah.
you solve it, then it
Yeah.
stops as well. I mean, those
Yeah.
dreams stopped.
Yeah.
Sometimes seeing it is already solving it.
Mm.
Because I mean, I saw, okay, I'm repeating my mother's history, then the dream stops because you've seen it already.
Yeah.
So I mean, I like so journaling about dreaming, of course, helps for people who have difficulty remembering their dreams
Yeah.
because there you find a lot of clues, let's say, to
Hmm.
um, traumas. But then again, also in the body, well, pain and basically not getting pregnant. To me, that is, of course, the biggest sign that people
Yeah.
come up with. There is a blockage somewhere as a result of which, because in the end, I believe that every woman is naturally able to conceive. Um,
Yeah. Unless you're fully sterile, I think that's only like 1% of women.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Or there are women without uteruses, right? I mean,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
those are really like physiological issues, but
Yeah.
and I mean, also, I guess also because of my history as well, a lot of women who come to me are unexplained usually.
Hmm.
So there is, to me, unexplained is let's go and research and
Yeah.
find out together what might be your mystery. And I always also say the answer is actually in you because you know yourself or
Yeah.
you can figure out what is it actually deep down, what is might be holding me back.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not necessarily, of course, something that has happened in the family. Yeah? This is just one part of it
Yeah.
because it's usually also related to creativity, which is being blocked. For
Hmm.
example, I also always ask, how is your life actually? Are you
Yeah.
happy? Are
Yeah.
you able to express yourself, to be creative? Are you working with your hands, even if it's not at your work? And can we like introduce more creativity into your
Yeah.
life, just like you say in your podcast, more
Yeah.
spark into your life, because that's
Yeah.
also a sign if you're not happy. I mean, like this also fertility issues are also not independent of your life issues. Also, in my sense, right? I mean, in the end, I also had to leave my career behind because that wasn't totally
Creating that
enabling me to
spark.
be happy.
How do you support women to protect themselves against the trauma of the fertility journey itself? So, what can women do to make sure that they don't lose their spark in that process?
Yeah, live.
Live.
Yeah, I think that's also, I guess, the biggest trap of the fertility treatment, right? Because especially in the beginning, I think the more it takes, maybe the less you do this, but
Mm.
you put your life on hold almost.
Yeah.
Um, you're sort of, calculating when will I get pregnant, and then until then, I won't make this journey, I won't start a new job. And I'm like, no, go.
Hmm.
What do you want to do? Because you can't go on living as if like it's going to happen next month. Or also like I invite people to imagine their life also without kids, like how would they live if there would not be a kid?
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, this is sometimes very difficult because the wish is so strong.
Mm-hmm.
But usually it also helps people to, and also I did that myself. I mean, I released at one point at the very end, okay, what if I don't get pregnant? What am I going to do with my life? I
Yeah.
think that's in the end maybe the most important question. And
Yeah.
when you do what you want to do with your life, then the gifts also start coming in a way. That's
Yeah.
also, I think, yeah, a mechanism again we can't really explain rationally, right? They
Yeah.
always say, well, let go of it and then it will happen. It's very
Mm-hmm.
difficult to let go of it.
Yeah.
But in the end, this is actually the work in the sense that the work which is very reproductive and fertile in a way, which also adds to your life because you live more like yourself. You live a life which is feeding you more than the life before.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's about finding that aliveness within yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Well, I mean, like fertility trauma, by the way, I mean, that's also a bit broad, right? Because I think the treatments itself also introduce trauma into your
mhm.
body. So that makes it even more complicated, right? Because maybe you already have some kind of trauma somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, and then all these procedures also introduce trauma. So that's another topic here, right?
Yeah.
Um, which is, yeah, especially I find also for unexplained infertility cases.
Mhm.
For example, me personally, I felt, I mean, like, why am I doing all this? My body is perfect, but then I have to go through these needles and
Yeah.
treatments, painful procedures. Like, why? I mean, like, that's so painful
Yeah.
to take your maybe most fun activity in life. I mean, at least as a couple, and then like creating a baby should be something fun and natural. And then
Mhm.
you take it to a totally clinical place with needles and pain and
Yeah.
exposing yourself in a place where you don't want to expose yourself. I mean, there's also a lot of that trauma, right? I mean, that also does something to the body. And
Yeah.
that's why I also find body work is so important. Like massage, something I always also, well, I mean, I also offer it myself, but like I also like even if I meet someone like occasionally and they're having an issue, I say, go and have a massage. It's
Mm.
like, because sometimes also we can't talk about it. And massage lets you sort of release things which maybe you're not even aware of. You don't have to be aware of, but in any case, I mean, I think going through the fertility procedures, you can take a massage now and then, and I
Mhm.
mean, it will help you.
Yeah.
That's guaranteed
Yeah.
because, because there's so much ramping up and piling up in your body
Yeah.
because of the procedures.
Yeah. And I think it's also like you were mentioning at the start, your body is giving you a lot of cues about how you feel in that trajectory. And it's also about taking them seriously. And if your body tells you this is not right for me right now, do you allow yourself a break? Do you allow yourself to follow your body and trust that
Yeah,
ultimately that's been my own experience at least. I dropped out of treatment at a certain point because I felt I can no longer do this. And I only went back in once I felt a clear yes again. And that made the whole process so much better because I was
yeah.
coming from that clear yes and not from a place of fear. What I'm not allowed to stop. I will lose a year. Um,
Yeah,
not
the
forcing.
clock ticking,
Yeah,
yeah,
the clock
that's
ticking.
also a topic here,
Yeah,
which is very present, right? I mean,
yeah,
like if you're already, uh, I mean, well, okay, that's a whole new topic. We should open a new session on
Uh,
that, like age
yeah,
and fertility and how
yeah,
it's talked about. I think also
yeah.
that's also
Also trauma.
something, yeah, also a trauma as
Yeah.
well. Then you're going into the pregnancy and you're still not trusting your body. You're still
Mm,
feeling anxious. You
yeah,
can't enjoy the pregnancy you've wished for so many years,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
birth again, like that is also sometimes very anxious for women also who have gone through IVF because
yeah,
they're so afraid to lose their baby again, which again sort of works as something um, like keeping them from living a
yeah,
good birth, let's say, which
yeah,
is more at ease and more trusting their body. So
yeah,
that's why yeah, so that's why I now sort of embrace the title doula much more than anything, because that allows me to work
hmm,
with the whole process, like building up the trust. And I mean, also after you get pregnant, it's not finished because
yeah,
because your confidence has been hurt in a way, it
yeah,
still keeps on peaking up during the
yeah,
pregnancy as well. You're a bit much more anxious than the average person who gets right away pregnant,
hmm,
let's say.
yeah,
So I mean, it's really important to hold space for what has happened to you
yeah,
and what you still need support in
yeah,
keeping up the trust in your body, because
yeah.
yeah, it's
It's
working for you. And then
yeah,
the doula's job is then to remind you that your body is working wonderfully and perfectly to
yeah,
support you and your baby.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's beautiful the way you approach that and really seeing that you can set the tone for motherhood because that's also what you
Uh-huh.
will take with you into motherhood, right? And
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, that's why I also I'm really convinced that the work you do getting pregnant,
mm,
the investment you make in yourself and in sort of shifting how you think about yourself and your body
hmm,
will pay off in the long run.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
So,
Yeah. Well, thank you for a beautiful conversation, Simin. What would be your general message for anyone who's dealing with fertility issues and or pregnancy loss, just to round up?
well, take care of yourself
Mm,
and give yourself the gift of doing the emotional work, because I
hmm,
think also these ages are also perfect for it, right? I mean, that's also sort of your midlife.
hmm,
And I mean, like, take this chance to build a life you will enjoy more and to be the woman you wish to be for
mm,
also your future child or for your future self, whatever may come in any
yeah,
case. I
yeah,
mean, like, that's also what I find the most beautiful thing about the work we do in a way. Because, like, if you're done at the fertility clinic, then you're done. But the investment you do in yourself to take better care of yourself will pay off forever.
true. Yeah, I really feel that. And
Yeah.
where can people find out more about you and your work if they want to reach out?
My website and Instagram, they're both birthwish.nl.
Hmm.
And we also have an English speaking Facebook community,
Yeah,
Fertility Support Group Netherlands. So
yeah,
anyone who is feeling alone and would like the support of also other women, like
mm,
online, but then they're
yeah,
also meeting up sometimes for just to share where they are in the process,
hmm.
then are also welcome there. Yeah,
Beautiful. I'll put it in the show notes so listeners can find it.
yes.
And thanks again
Thank you.
for a really interesting conversation. And thanks also to the listeners for tuning in this week. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram at thatfertilefeeling or email me at friendswas@thatfertilefeeling.com. I always love to hear from you and always get back to you and hope to see you back in 2 weeks. Bye bye.
Thanks.